This is Technically Legal, podcast about legal technology, innovation in the legal industry, and the impact tech is having on the law. Today's show, I'm talking to Stan Shepard. He's the general counsel of Atlassian, which is a company that develops tools to make teams more productive. When I found out I had the opportunity to talk to Atlassian's GC, Stan Shepard, I was pretty excited for a couple reasons. First is that we here at Percipient are users of Atlassian products. We use Jira as a project management tool, and we keep code in a Bitbucket code repository. And just recently, we started using the company's video tool, Loom, to record our processes. The second reason I was happy Stan was coming on the show is because some of our customers use Atlassian products too. Specifically, for a few of our customers, submitting a Jira ticket is how a business person in those organizations submit their request for legal help to the legal team. The legal team uses Jira just like everybody else in their company because that's how they communicate. Point being, I always like it when we get somebody on the show to talk about how their legal department is using software that they might not otherwise think of using to get their legal work and processes done. As we will hear, Stan hasn't always been a lawyer. Prior to going to law school, he worked as a finance journalist, but eventually got his law degree, and apropos to his background, he landed a job with Charles Schwab. Ultimately, he ended up at Atlassian, first as the head of commercial transactions in 2015, but he worked his way up the corporate ladder and became the company's general counsel in 2021. As we will hear today, Stan will tell us about how Atlassian's mantra is to power teamwork. The company was founded in 2002 and offers products like the aforementioned project management software Jira. They have other products like Confluence for knowledge management, and the video tool I talked about too called Loom. The company has over 300,000 customers, including notable names like NASA and Domino's Pizza, just to name a couple. Atlassian's new AI product, Rovo, was just rolled out, and with it, the company aims to integrate search and chat functionality across various platforms, including third-party software. But enough about me talking about what the company does. Let's let Stan tell us.
So Atlassian's mission, really simply, is to unleash the potential of every team. We power teamwork. That's the most simple way to talk about Atlassian. We offer a whole array of products. Our most popular product that is probably the best known in the marketplace is our project management software, Jira. We also offer a knowledge management software, Confluence, and then we also have a whole new set of products that we're constantly innovating. Loom is the most recent one that we acquired. It's for asynchronous video messaging.
We use it internally too. One of the things we're doing is getting our operating procedures down, and we record them all. We record them all, and we use Loom for that, yeah.
Love to hear that. We have over 300,000 customers right now that use our products to get work done. Folks that you've probably heard of, like NASA, put people on the, on the moon. Rivian, Domino's Pizza, so really just exceptional companies that use our products daily.
So you are an Australian company by origin,
correct?
Right? So you just mentioned you have 300,000 customers. If you know, what's the breakdown, U.S. versus Europe versus Australia, or U.S. versus everywhere else?
Yeah, I probably would need to fact check that, but I think it's roughly 50% in the Americas, about, I'd say maybe 30 in Europe, and then the remaining rest of the world. So although we're an Australian company, we definitely punch above our weight, and we have most of our customers are well outside Australia.
Yeah, I feel like I was listening to one of my favorite podcasts, How I Built This, and your CEO was on there. And if I recall correctly, the company was founded early 2000s. Am I wrong there, or when was it founded?
Yeah, we've been around for 23 years.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, that's great. Obviously a tech company, but you don't come from a tech background per se. You started in big law. And then you were at Schwab for a long time in their legal department, right?
Yep.
And so how do you go from the financial industry to tech?
Well, let me even back up before law. I actually was a financial and political journalist for 5 years right out of college and loved to write. I come from a family of educators. My mom was a librarian. My dad was a school teacher, ultimately went into philanthropy. But, sort of interesting that what motivates me in the morning is I get out of bed and I want to learn new things. And so I think that might help sort of, understand why I ended up in technology, is there's just such incredible hyper learning loops when it comes to working in tech. So transitioned obviously out of journalism, went to law school.
Who were you writing for?
I worked for a variety of publishers. Standard & Poor's is probably the most well-known. I was covering the bond market, probably not the most exciting market, but you gotta start somewhere.
So you decided to go to law school after writing for 5 years? Is that when you decided to go?
I did, yeah. I sort of wanted, I think, a little bit more of impact, I would say. I think one of the things that was challenging with journalism is I didn't get a great feedback loop from the readers, right? You'd sort of push your article out into the ether, and then, this was early web days, so you just didn't get a lot of feedback and interaction with the reader. And one of the things I really loved or thought I would love about the law is there was that direct, attorney-client relationship. You really get to see the fruits of your labor, the impact. You get to solve hard problems. People come to you because they really need you, and you're really that sort of helper and consigliere.
And you're Schwab. You're there for a few years. So what's the introduction to Atlassian? How do you make the jump?
One thing that I thought really was interesting about Schwab is, yes, it's financial services, can be fairly staid and, driven by a lot of regulations. I was there during the Great Recession, so Dodd-Frank was definitely front and center for us and, created some headwinds. But what I loved about Charles Schwab and actually Chuck himself is that it really was a challenger brand, that he really was, trying to take sort of an approach to finance for the average person on Main Street and really challenge sort of the more entrenched, Wall Street. And he was doing it through technology. That was the way that Schwab was able to drive really competitive pricing, was through the leveraging of technology and giving people a web platform to do online trading, right? And you didn't have to pick up the phone and call your expensive broker and pay high commissions. And so what I loved, Chad, was just that intersection between finance and law and technology. And so, 2015 came and I was sort of feeling the itch. I was at Schwab for 8 years. Given my background in technology transactions, probably didn't see myself being GC at a financial services company. Those folks tended to be more the SEC lawyers out there, compliance lawyers. And so wanted to move to a company where it was high growth, early stage. I could get in on the ground floor and build. That was sort of my mission. And so Atlassian was the perfect fit. I came in as the head of commercial transactions, as the fifth person on the legal team, and just was able to build that function and really make sense of how we transacted, where our contracts lived, what the forms were, really get that muscle going so that when we went through the IPO and the underwriters were doing the diligence, we had our house in order.
So you said you were the fifth member of the legal department?
Yeah.
Did that include support, still maybe legal ops or other kinds of support staff?
We had a paralegal.
So that was 2015. What about now in 2024, 9 years later?
Fast forward and we're over 100.
Wow. Was that a gradual increase or has it, just ramped up?
It's been thoughtful. I would say first and foremost, it's not, growing for growth's sakes, but it's really, how do we scale to support the business in a very sensible and measured way. And so I would say that, as the business ramps, legal ramps, proportionally. And so where we saw a lot of growth on the team really came in the pandemic years, in that 2021, when the business was just growing super fast. Everyone was working remotely from home, huge demand for Atlassian products, collaborating, not in the office. How do you do whiteboards? How do you do asynchronous communications and not just have to be on Zoom all day? That was really an important, I think, sort of inflection point for Atlassian and where we got a lot of tailwinds. And so as a result, we had to scale up. Other things, happen in the marketplace, say like GDPR. That was a big forcing function for us to stand up a dedicated privacy function. We obviously are getting a little bit bigger, more well-known in the world. So we stood up a policy and government affairs function. It's really letting the business drive the shape and the scale of the legal team.
And did you hold any positions in between the commercial transaction position and your current GC role?
I did. I was a deputy general counsel and had the first taste at sort of a portfolio of different subject matters. So I wasn't really an expert, say, in all of them. And I think that was a really important learning moment for me and just a step change in leadership. So my portfolio included commercial, privacy, legal ops, and we also had risk and compliance at the time.
When you came into the organization, I think I already know the answer to it based on you talking about leaving Schwab. Was your goal to get into leadership, to get a GC position, or what was the plan when you first came in?
I think it was in the back of my mind. It wasn't the only thing. I wanted to land at a company where I believed in the people. I thought they were good human beings, first and foremost. Check, got that at Atlassian. And then secondly, that I loved the product, that I was really sort of committed to the thing that we were building and, sort of the mission of delighting our customers. So those were the two non-negotiables for me, Chad. If there was an opportunity for me to grow, to move into leadership, to ultimately lead the team, that was always going to be something that I would not say no to, but it wasn't the only thing I was thinking about.
What would you recommend to someone out there listening right now who's just getting their first job, their first in-house counsel position, thinking about climbing the ladder? What would you tell them to do?
I would say raise your hand and ask for more. The more that you can just take on, the more that you're being the change you seek. That's a big value here at Atlassian. And I think that only is going to put you in good stead for whatever comes next. Not only does it allow you to stretch, learn new things, try things that you haven't done before, I think it just sends a signal to everyone, in your network and within the company that you're someone who is trusted, isn't afraid to take on new things, and can only sort of grow and have that growth mindset. So I would say sort of forget the whole concept of climbing the ladder. If you just do your job and you ask for more and you take on harder projects time after time, it will take care of itself.
So obviously you want to do well, whatever position or whatever area you're in, but it sounds like expanding your horizon seems to be one of the better ways you would recommend to get there.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, there definitely, as I mentioned, is a step change from going to be an expert, a subject matter expert, to being more of a generalist. And first my reaction was, well, how am I ever going to be better than the privacy leader that I have on the team? And the answer was, I will never be, right? Those people are the experts, and that's the bench that you want as a leader. And so then the question in my mind really had to shift to, okay, well then how can I elevate? How can I force multiply? How can I connect the different pillars of my portfolio? That was really truly where I unleashed the magic and sort of where I could add value as a leader. And so it was about breaking down silos. It was about providing insight and maybe more of the strategic business lens to those subject matter experts so that they had the context and the ability to make informed judgments and exercise discretion with a business lens to it. Because honestly, Chad, I believe that legal advice in a vacuum is completely worthless. It has to be anchored to the business strategy and the world that we live in.
When we come back in just a couple minutes, Stan fills us in on how the Atlassian legal team uses its own tools to get its work done. And he also offers suggestions about how to integrate AI into legal workflows, but also doing so responsibly. I'm Chad Main, and you're listening to Technically Legal. I've already mentioned that we are Atlassian customers, we use it internally, but so do some of our customers, and specifically their legal departments. That's another reason I was excited to get you on here, because I always like to talk about legal departments using tools they may not otherwise use because the clients they're serving, the business people are. I'll give you an example of this. So one of the things my company does is we'll help companies take a first pass at more routine contracts. So for instance, the one I'm thinking of is a mid-sized tech company. We help with their vendor contracts. And how do they get to the legal department? The business people in this company is through Jira. And so we're connected to Jira too. And that's how we know we've got to take a first pass of this stuff, redline, and send it back. So that's why I was glad to hear you come on, because I assume, and hopefully I'm going to find out, you guys, as they say, eat your own dog food. You guys are using Atlassian products internally in the legal department and with business too, correct?
Absolutely. We on the legal team here at Atlassian are power users of our own products. I really would love to be an evangelist and to help teach other teams how to adopt our products and really to use the Atlassian product suite as sort of that central nervous system of a modern, innovative legal team. Get off email, stop using sort of the old traditional tools that maybe you used at the law firm, and really push the envelope and shoot for the stars. And I think Atlassian absolutely can help you achieve that. So just to give you a sense, Chad, of how our legal team uses the Atlassian products, I'd probably start first with Jira, as you just mentioned.
So your business people, they get a hold of you with questions or whatever, or requests through Jira?
Yeah, absolutely. So that is sort of that centralized hub for legal help and legal services. So, all employees across Atlassian can come to the Atlassian legal service desk, easily open a ticket, don't have to understand, am I sending this to an employment lawyer? Am I sending this to a contracts lawyer? Just open a legal ticket and sort of have that legal front door. And from there, we route those to all the right legal specialists or attorneys. And what's beautiful is that all the comments, all the documents, everything is centralized in that ticket flow. Somebody goes on vacation, you just assign that ticket to a new person. There's no sort of fumbling or missteps. And so really just a smooth end-to-end, I think, transaction, and really lets the business client leave the interaction feeling like they had a really good experience working with legal.
And do you have an intake person that says, all right, this is an employment question, go here. Oh, this is a commercial transaction question, go there?
AI is doing that now.
Oh, that's great.
That's the beauty of AI.
That's great. Was it a person before that now the AI fills in for them, or was it more ad hoc?
I think each team sort of did it a little bit differently, but, there was a point when I joined back in 2015, ancient history, we did have one person who literally was managing the queue, as we called it, and we had a stand-up every morning where we went through and triaged the queue. But the beauty is, who needs a 30-minute meeting every morning to do queue triage when AI can do that while you're sleeping?
Right. You mentioned, too, is get away from email, because the back and forth and, are you CCing the right people? When you use the ticketing system like Jira, it's very transparent. But the other thing I'd like to point out too about Jira and other products, but definitely Jira, because our experience with it, you can set up workflows. So if the AI figures out it is an employment matter, it triggers some other workflow and alerts the right people versus, everybody else and bothering those people.
For
So
sure.
it's very functional, very, very functional. So do you have any, maybe, I assume with Confluence, you have sort of a self-serve situation where people can go in and see common legal questions and maybe find answers?
So Confluence, for folks who don't know, is our knowledge management tool. Think of it as Wiki on steroids. And for legal, our deployment really has two sides of the same coin. There's an internal-facing knowledge management system. So can people on the legal team find the information, right? So that's sort of like our forms library, our data mapping diagrams, things like that. And then as you described, there's more of a business-facing side for the legal Confluence sites. And that's things like checklists for product launches, self-serve, make sure that you're following the process, but you don't have to actually talk to anyone, insider trading policies, things like that people can read on their own time. So those are just a few examples of how we as a legal team use Confluence. And as you mentioned, it keeps us away from that sort of email or filing hell that I think does come in the modern workplace, which is like, hey, can you email me that policy, for the 100th time? That's just a waste of time. Go to Confluence and you'll find it at your fingertips.
And much quicker. And it not only saves the person looking for it a lot of time because they might have to wait on the busy lawyer, it also saves time for the lawyer because they may not, eventually people are going to figure out, just go to Confluence first instead of asking the lawyer, right?
Yep. And the other beauty of AI is that it's really helped with our search potential. So not only just within Confluence, but you can search using our Atlassian intelligence across all products that are on your Atlassian platform. So really sort of that end-to-end platform play that I think is so important, in the modern workplace. And then also in our new AI offering that's coming to general availability soon, Rovo, you're able to pull in search for third-party products. So we really want to become that search engine for modern working, right? Think of it as, your Google for the workplace.
How's Rovo going to work? Obviously you go in and search all the Jira tickets for whatever, or the knowledge base, obviously, probably one of the main ways to do it is searching it. But how's this going to work AI-wise, specifically with the third party, searching other people's information?
Sort of in a nutshell, it's up to you or your IT administrator as to like how wide a net you want to cast with your third-party providers. We'll provide the APIs, say to, your Google Workplace or your Workday account or, your Dropbox account. You and the customer are sort of have the keys to the castle as to how much data you want to add to your Rovo instance. But, we're going to offer something like 80 integrations right out of the box on day one. So super robust, and we'll be adding more over time.
Will it be a standalone product, or will it connect to like someone's searching Confluence for an answer or something? How does it work?
Sort of two halves to our AI offerings. So the first is the more, I think, out of the box. It's called Atlassian Intelligence. That's just that suite of AI capabilities across all products.
Okay.
This focus more on like automating routine tasks, summarizing content, hey, make this, shorter, make this more impactful.
So is it like a Copilot type of situation? The same concept where it's sitting there and maybe on the right side of your screen and you can pump stuff in it.
It's not autopilot. You're right. It's a Copilot. But yeah, it's very much focused on language and automating tasks and, has a virtual agent element to it. And then the piece that we're really excited to announce in 2 weeks, or have announced, but actually go GA, is on Rovo. And that's a standalone product, to answer your question, and it has three components. It has the search component, it has the chat component, and then it has a much more robust agent model that comes out of the box, as well as, sort of has a development kit where you can create your own agents on top of that. So think of Rovo as really your always-on teammate, right? So we really want to integrate AI and human collaboration. That's really Atlassian's twist and really the value proposition when it comes to AI. So that's the exciting thing that's coming ahead and really going to allow teams to focus on the highest value work, and the rest is left to their AI teammate.
So will you connect it there in the legal department to maybe your contract database so they can, find, have we done a contract like this before if you're an attorney, or maybe, the sales is trying to find a similar contract to get an answer to a question. Will you enable it that way, or, what's the plan?
So specifically, our contracts are stored in Salesforce. That's where the opportunities are. That's the tool that, sales uses as their main, sort of source of truth. And so we would be able to pull and query contracts using Rovo through that integration with Salesforce.
That's great. Before we close this loop, I want the legal department's doing. What other tech? Any other tech you guys are using, Atlassian or otherwise?
Yeah. I'll mention Loom.
We should explain Loom is you can capture videos on your computer.
It is. So it's not like Zoom in the sense that it's live video. This is more asynchronous video messaging. What I love about it, Chad, is that it's a huge meeting saver. I can't tell you how I was able to shrink the number of boxes on my calendar after using Loom. And let me give you an example. A lot of times you have sort of this, hey, let's call a meeting, to update everyone on project status. I mentioned sort of that queue meeting that we used to have, as a stand up every morning at 9 to go through, the queue status. You don't have to do that. You send someone a Loom and say, here's my portion of the meeting, sort of updating you on the status. And you can present your screen, you can run through that and give a voiceover. People can watch it on 2x speed. So it doesn't, the 10-minute Loom actually only takes 5 minutes to listen to. It's pretty awesome. And then I love the asynchronous piece too, because we're a global company, right? And so, bridging that divide often between West Coast of US and in Australia can be quite hard. There's only a limited number of hours in the day where we overlap in time zones.
Probably Saturday in Australia right now, right? They're so far ahead of us.
Yeah, well, the Friday is their Saturday, and their Monday is our Sunday. So that knocks out a couple days that we don't necessarily overlap in the work week. So just sort of that, how do you juggle time zones, I think is very much solved through Loom, because you can send it to someone while they're sleeping and they can listen to it in the morning. One thing that I love that I'll share is that sort of one of the things I do in the morning is I put in my AirPods and I listen to Looms on my walk or to my commute to the office. It's just a really easy way to digest content and gives your eyes a break.
Adoption-wise, because that's not, I guess maybe since the pandemic, people are more apt to get on their computer and do it. But let's just talk about Looms though. Adoption-wise, how did you get people to do it, to say, let's just record it versus picking up the phone, emailing, sticking to the meeting?
It's definitely a culture change, right? And I think you need your power users, you need your evangelists within your organization to be bold and to be willing to work in a new tool and to force people to get out of the habit, right, of, like you say, picking up a phone or sending an email. And so I think, at Atlassian, we definitely have a really powerful team that is there to teach other teams how to use Atlassian products most effectively in their organization. We have a team playbook, right, where you can learn, hey, Atlassian experimented on how to get Loom, to be an important system or communication method within the culture of Atlassian. And so I think that, all it takes is one power user to get people to say, yeah, this is really cool. This is awesome. Oh my God, we don't have to have a meeting. Like, I'm going to keep using Loom, right? And sort of, I think you get a network effect there.
Yeah, I was going to say, it could be some virality too, because if you get a Loom from somebody for the first time, like, oh, this is genius. I just saved 20 minutes. You're going to start doing it too, right?
Yeah. Another cool anecdote there on Loom is, I was doing some candidate interviews and one of the candidates sent me a Loom as a thank you note. I thought that was really cool.
That is good. That's good. That's good. So we've already kind of jumped into this topic a little bit vis-a-vis how the legal department at Atlassian is working, but let's step out of a tech-forward company like Atlassian. Let's say you're kind of in the middle or maybe even old school and you're starting to think about, you get maybe freaked out, that might not be the right word, but you feel like maybe getting left behind if you don't get up and start using AI or just tech in general. Let's just keep it to legal because obviously we're a legal-facing podcast. Let's say you're a GC at a company that's not as sophisticated as Atlassian, but the GC started to think about it. What should they be thinking about it? What should be their first step to try to get this tech in there?
So, the number one thing that I like to remind my team is that any legal department in-house really should run like the business. And so for me, that ultimately comes down to, are you data-driven in your decision-making? Are you plugged in? Do you understand the business strategy? And how do you focus on really the highest value work as a legal department? And so for me, I think it's about, how can AI accomplish those three things, right? And so, I think it's a huge opportunity for legal departments. If you think about, legal, it's super text heavy, right? It's, we're often working with very dense technical text. A lot of hours are spent reviewing, complex documents. And so I think the opportunity there is to strategically understand what are the strengths of AI in a particular area. I would definitely do a proof of concept and understand sort of, hey, it's 30% of the way there or it's 90% of the way there. What are the limitations and, what are the advantages? And then also sort of what are some of the activities or jobs to be done that AI can help with, right? What are the things that maybe are not legal in nature that all of us are doing in the course of our day that AI can take off of our plate? So one example I'll give you at Atlassian is, in contract negotiations. So our commercial team spends a lot of time reviewing the agreements and then elevating sort of the blockers or sticking points up to stakeholders like sales or security team or product team. And so AI can be super important and helpful in just summarizing contract language and putting it into plain English and also into a format that's really digestible for someone to understand and read, all within seconds. So I just love the fact that it helps with language, sort of that smart brevity piece that I think we're all striving for. And then also on the efficiency side, there's a ton of time savings.
You just hit on something too, because before I launched the company as a longtime litigator, and every other case you'd have to learn a lot about something that wasn't legal, right? And AI is well suited for that. You could kind of summarize, depending if the information is there for it to take a look at. AI can help you summarize that stuff and save you some time learning it, right?
Yeah, I mean, one of the really cool things that Confluence has, leveraging Atlassian intelligence, is any key terms you really can hover over, and then it provides a definition, or it'll take you on a jump link, even if it doesn't have a hyperlink, to a source document for you to learn more about, a term or an acronym, right? And that's one of the things that Atlassian Intelligence does, is it really learns within your environment, and it's very, single customer tenant specific, right? As to say, what is that acronym, RAC at your company, right? It might mean totally different things between different companies, but Atlassian Intelligence is fine-tuned and is able to define RAC for your company.
You didn't say it outright, but I know it's important to you, and you kind of intimated. You said, well, if you're thinking about bringing the AI in, you got to understand, is it 30%, is it 80%, whatever it is. It's responsible, right? Being responsible about this tech. What does that mean to you when you say responsible use or responsible implementation of AI?
So, I think it's still, early days. It's exciting. I love being on the bleeding edge of technology. And I think certainly our brand of legal is about embracing smart risk. We're not cowboys, cowgirls, but I think we're not afraid to make bets. And some of those bets will pay off and some of them won't. I think that's just generally sort of how my philosophy is. And so, as it relates to AI, I think, again, it has to be smart risk. There are instances where models could be biased. So you really need to look under the hood and understand sort of how the models were created, how they were trained, what the data sets were, where there might be some inherent biases. And then I think the other thing to think about really is, sort of what are the use cases, right? So, is AI being used for things that could have consequential life decisions, right? A job applicant, a promotion, those are some examples where I would take a beat, right? And really understand, hey, how sophisticated is AI? Do we have increased human eyes or review on the outputs of AI so that we're not creating, unintended consequences or perpetuating things that are not right or good in the world? So that's just one thing that I've been very conscious of. Bringing it back to Atlassian and our value proposition, I'm super proud that we have been on the forefront of launching a responsible tech review template, which is something that we've open sourced. It's on our website. Check it out. And it's gotten a lot of buzz amongst other tech companies and GCs in my space. And just to give you a sense, it's a really easy to use guide that helps teams understand how, their AI projects align with guiding principles around transparency, trust, advancing equity, as I mentioned, removing bias. All of that, I think, can really be surfaced using that tech review template.
Connected to your kind of view on this, Atlassian's view, you're really active in software.org. I think the BSA, is that, what's it stand for? Business Software Alliance? Is that what it stands for?
Yeah. Yep.
Tell us about your involvement there and what it does.
So BSA is a great organization. It's the leading advocate for the global software industry. It connects a broad variety and diverse landscape of enterprise SaaS companies with stakeholders like governments, regulators, and legislators worldwide. And my personal involvement was that Atlassian joined BSA as a global member in 2020. I have the honor of being on the board of BSA as well. And so it's really, think of it as an extension of your, sort of policy function, right? Or government affairs function. Or if you don't have one, you can literally have BSA be that. So, where is the landscape moving when it comes to privacy, AI, cybersecurity, data flows? These are all the things that BSA not only is keeping sort of a finger on the pulse, right, to monitor, but also they're an advocate, right, for the global software industry and making sure that legislation is done smartly. We are not in the business of blocking legislation, but we do want to influence and make sure that it's smart, business-minded, practical legislation.
Yeah, I saw you have a lot of meetings you bring legislators together. I assume you're educating them, like representatives of the software industry, are filling them in about what's being developed and answering questions.
So really fun sort of experience that I had I think it was about a year ago, went out to Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., And we met with a series of, members of Congress that are interested in AI and, potentially a uniform AI bill for the United States, something that I think is still, quite a bit ways away. I think it's probably more traction at the state level. But that was a visit to Capitol Hill that was organized by BSA, and they really understood sort of how to curate the list of, members of Congress to make sure that we're talking to the people who really are the decision makers, and also to have a very balanced approach, right? We talked to people on both sides of the aisle, and really we're sort of addressing sort of some of their constituencies' concern, also promoting sort of our vision, right? And sort of saying, hey, yes, it can be scary. Yes, it's new, but here's what we're going to do to do it in a responsible way.
You posted on LinkedIn recently your work or support of the Shared Act, and specifically as it relates to you at Bitbucket, which is an Atlassian product. It's a code repository, but this act, if I understand right, has some certain requirements of the government and code that it develops. What was the organization's involvement there, or how did you work with legislators to get that passed?
That one was a little bit more, I would say, niche to Atlassian, and sort of that developer, market that we play in amongst other markets. We definitely have products for non-technical teams, but within that sort of developer community, as you mentioned, Bitbucket is a core product. And it was actually my in-house policy team that really was the one that identified a member of Congress that was sponsoring that in committee. And we partnered with GitLab, who also has a product in this space, and really were able to influence sort of the outcome of the bill that still is not law, but we are hoping it does become law. And really, it's about the code that the government that's funded by taxpayers, you and me, develops really should be used for other organizations within the government, and not sort of this sort of more siloed approach to development that you could imagine could happen across the U.S. government, just given its scale and complexity.
Right. Well, great. Appreciate your time, Stan. If people want to learn more about Atlassian or any of the products, where do you want to send them? Or some of the resources you talked about, and if they want to get a hold of you, where do you want to send them?
Let's go to www.atlassian.com. Great launching pad for folks to learn more about our product. Yeah, and reach out to me on LinkedIn if folks want to connect with me, Stan Shepard.
Okay, that's a wrap for today's episode. As always, we really appreciate you listening. If you want to subscribe, you can find us on most major podcast platforms like Apple, Spotify, Google, Stitcher, etc. Also, if you like us enough, I hope you leave us a favorable review. Thanks again for listening. Until next time, this has been Technically Legal.